Yusuke Urameshi, Yoshiro Tagashi's delinquent spirit detective versus Masashi Kishimoto's #1 knucklehead ninja, Naruto Uzumaki. I've done plenty of matchups on my channel, usually involving a One Piece character, but today I wanted to branch out and start dipping to other verses, and also because I really wanted an excuse to talk about my GOAT Yusuke, and with all things considered, I feel like Naruto would be a solid opponent for him given how I'll structure this video. If you like what you see, then by all means check out my other videos I have on the channel, and subscribe for more content in the future. Thank you for clicking on this video, and let's go ahead and lay out the rules for this matchup. In my opinion, the rules for this matchup are very simple and easy to follow, so I don't think there should be any disagreements with what I've laid out. Rule 1 pertains to the order, so just to clarify, there's a few adjustments which have to be made when discussing the forms of both these characters, since there's 8 arcs in Yu Yu Hakusho which can be divided into 4 main sagas: the Spirit Detective Saga, the Dark Tournament Saga, the Chapter Black Saga, and the Three Kings Saga. Meanwhile, for Naruto, there's well over 10 arcs without even including the Boruto era for Naruto, so to make this easier to digest, we're going to use Naruto at 5 different points in the series to discuss how he compares against the various points of Yusuke. The order goes as follows: Chapter 1 Yusuke versus Chapter 1 Naruto, Spirit Detective Saga Yusuke versus End of Part 1 Naruto, Dark Tournament Yusuke versus Sage Mode Naruto, Raizen Yusuke versus War Arc Naruto, and finally, Three Kings Yusuke versus Hokage Naruto. Rule 2 pertains to the scaling. When it comes to the scaling aspects of both characters, both Naruto and Yusuke can be scaled to insanely high levels of power depending on the interpretation of each character. I'm going to be using more conservative scaling for both of them. The point of the video isn't to dispute the validity of those high-end levels of scaling, but the fight becomes pretty boring pretty fast if Yusuke during the Dark Tournament is already star level or Naruto is universal by the time we're into the Boruto era. I acknowledge that those levels of scaling exist, we just won't be using them here. And finally, Rule 3 pertains to the sources. I'm strictly using the Viz translations for both series and the canon material that goes along with it. The only time I use the anime is for Naruto the Last, since it's canon. I hope my reasoning for each rule makes sense, so now let's move on to our first round of the video. So when breaking down Chapter 1 Yusuke versus Chapter 1 Naruto, to be blunt, this is just an undeniable stomp for Naruto, which really shouldn't be a shocker. Naruto may suck with his chakra control and starting from the bottom, but Yusuke isn't surviving an onslaught of hundreds of clones from Naruto point blank period, which is a perfect time to segue into Spirit Energy or Reiki in Yu Yu Hakusho. And just a quick crash course, but Reiki is a pretty straightforward power system. Manipulating it allows you to use it offensively and defensively. At high levels, you can heal yourself or others, and essentially the more of it you have, the bigger increase in your stats. Reiki is also tethered to one's mental state and emotions, so if you're off your game, you're not going to be performing at your best, and if you end up feeling strong emotions of anger or determination, for example, your stats are going to increase, such as your AP, durability, and speed. And Yusuke has absolutely none of that in Chapter 1. Highest you could put him is like above average human who could easily beat up teenage gang members and adults. That doesn't at all compare to defeating a Chunin from the Leaf Village, no matter how trash Mizuki is in the world of Naruto. Now we have Spirit Detective Yusuke versus End of Part 1 Naruto. And this is actually a really good match, starting things off with Yusuke since now he actually has some proficiency with Reiki after training with Genkai for some time. Yusuke now has the ability to react to Suzaku's lightning attacks. Not only is the lightning literal lightning, since we see Suzaku use the lightning from the sky, but you could argue the lightning is amplified due to the literal description of the Fist of Dark lightning technique is dark energy created by combining the power of lightning with demonic aura. I don't think this is an outlier either, since in the literal arc prior, Yusuke with absolutely zero training was able to dodge air blades which are stated to be supersonic, putting him already at that Mach 1.1 to 2.5 range in terms of combat and reaction speed. In terms of AP, most would set him at large building level from his feat of clashing with Suzaku that tore the dome off the castle that they were fighting in, but I'd argue a fresh Yusuke is likely in the city block range due to it being stated by Kuwabara that both he and Yusuke leveled up in power when they go to rescue Yukina in the next arc, and possibly in the multi-city block range when enhancing himself with life energy to increase the AP in his attacks. Life energy is a finite resource that can be used in battle because, as the name suggests, if you use it all up, you die. For Naruto, we can likely scale him to city block to multi-city block in terms of AP as well when comparing him to Orochimaru's snake summons. These summons during Konoha Crush were tearing apart multiple city blocks in the Leaf Village. Naruto by the end of Part 1 is obviously stronger than himself during the tuning exams, but when he first encountered these beasts in the Forest of Death, he took solid damage from them in base, and with high difficulty, stopped one attack from the summon with an enhancement for Kurama's chakra, but he never defeated it. During the battle against Orochimaru to bring back Tsunade, Naruto is still getting impressed by these snake summons in base, but I'd argue by the time he gets his one-tailed cloak, this hurdle shouldn't be a problem at all. Honestly, a Rasengan in base might be enough to finish the job too, given that Kabuto needed to actively start healing himself before the attack landed just to survive. I think at this point in the story though, Naruto is definitely not comparable to a younger Kakashi's lightning timer feat of cutting a lightning bolt, since that was a stronger version of Kakashi compared to the one we saw in the manga during the Third War, since he needed the Sharingan from Obito to just use the Chidori effectively to begin with. In a match, I definitely see Yusuke winning this one due to the speed gap, since he blatantly is dodging and deflecting multiple demonic energy enhanced lightning attacks from Suzaku. You could argue that Naruto's AP can be enhanced to higher levels due to Kurama, but Yusuke should be able to survive any attacks that would possibly land on him due to enhancing his durability with Reiki, which allowed him to survive multiple attacks from not only Suzaku, but also 20% Toguro, who completely eclipsed Yusuke in power at this point in the story. For our next round, we have both characters jump drastically in power compared to their previous versions. Since we started with Yusuke previously, we'll go ahead and put Sage Naruto front and center, and honestly, he has incredibly high stats without Kurama's influence, not just in Sage mode, but also in base with the assistance of his clones. Naruto was able to tank getting hit by Shinra Tensei multiple times. Keep in mind as well that one Shinra Tensei was enough to KO all 3 Sage Toads at once, which is impressive considering Gamma Bunto was able to tank a direct hit from one of Shukaku's air bullets. Naruto also, just with his physical stats alone, was able to pick up and throw half of Kurama and was capable of hurting him multiple times in Sage mode. Granted, just because he hurt Kurama doesn't mean he completely scales to him, just to clarify. All this on its own likely scales Naruto to an absolute minimum of island level with his AP and durability, but I feel like it's also reasonable to put him in that large island level plus bracket depending on the interpretation. Switching over to Yusuke's full strength during the Dark Tournament, we have to look at Genkai's battle against the enslaved members of Team Ichigaki. Genkai straight up just uses a light attack mid-battle, and yes, this is literal light because the direct kanji that is described from Genkai's attack, and excuse me if I butcher this, is Hikari, which literally translates to light. Another angle looking at this is, formally speaking, the kanji for speed of light in a scientific setting would be Kosuku, which still uses the kanji Hikari for light. Just to drive this home further, the 2 following attacks Genkai does against the team directly uses the kanji for Purify and Judgment, which is the exact explanation for what she did to the team's souls after defeating them. I don't think it would make any sense for 2 of the 3 attacks to do exactly what they are translated to do, but one doesn't just because. As we discussed earlier, one's stats get boosted with the more Reiki that they possess and for strong emotions that they feel. Yusuke's had 4 major increases in his Reiki threshold during the Dark Tournament. The first is just from absorbing Genkai's Spirit Orb, where he is stated to have grown stronger in comparison to when he first fought Jin, and is known to have grown faster and stronger by 80% to grow as well. The second is Yusuke's training and honing his skills further leading up to the final day of the Dark Tournament. The third is when he takes off his Spirit Cuffs mid-battle against Toguro, which is stated to have drastically increased his power after releasing them. And then finally, the fourth is the drastic increase in aura he gets after he believes Kuwabara died, where he is blatantly blitzing and overpowering Toguro at 100% of his power. I feel confident to put Yusuke in the FTL range due to drastically upscaling above Genkai's light attack, but even with the giant boost in power, I don't think I can put this version above Large Mountain in terms of AP or durability at best, mainly due to the scaling that happens in Chapter Black. Because Sage Naruto not only hits harder than this version of Yusuke, but he can likely take Yusuke's strongest attack while being boosted by his life energy, Yusuke is probably not going to last a drawn out battle. Naruto, due to his feats in Sage Mode, could likely still be able to react to Yusuke given the Sage Mode's enhanced sensory abilities despite the speed gap, so I'm going to call Naruto as the winner here due to having higher overall stats. And for our next matchup is Raizen Yusuke versus War Arc Naruto. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is probably my favorite part of the video because Yusuke's scaling while in this form is just nuts. I'm going to go in depth with his scaling, so to skip to the actual battle, please go to this timestamp, otherwise enjoy this breakdown. So to start with, we have to acknowledge Koenma's statement that Spirit World has absolutely no means of taking on an S-Class demon, and one S-Class demon appearing in the human world is considered catastrophic. Why exactly is that important, you may ask? It's because King Enma and the Underworld Special Defense Force are also included in Spirit World. Back in chapter 20 of the manga, Koenma is desperately trying to retrieve the stolen spirit items to not piss off Enma. He states that what usually occurs when Enma gets mad is natural disasters happening all around Earth, and states he suspects that this time the anger Enma will display would cause an earthquake stronger than the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. This earthquake was measured to be at the highest 8.2 in magnitude, which in terms of total seismic energy generated would be Large Island plus, but since this is just the effects of Enma getting angry and not him using an actual attack, squad. His overall output is likely stronger than that, but at the bare minimum, this would be Enma's starting point. In Chapter 147, the Special Defense Force of Spirit World is called in to try and contain the Demon World breach that Sensui was plotting to open. The Defense Force inclusion in this arc is important for two reasons. The first is that the reason why they were called in was because the situation was so dire that the human world was considered to be in danger of international destruction that they were expected to stop. And the second is that they specialize in hunting and defeating A-class demons. Even just 3 squad members are considered higher than the average A-class demon. And when Yusuke revives into an S-class demon after losing to Sensui, he literally no-diffs the entire squad. Simply flexing his aura a little bit was enough to no-diff the captain of the defense force. And it later gets revealed that the Special Defense Force have never encountered an S-class demon before and can't even comprehend Yusuke's power. This alone puts Yusuke at the bare minimum in the multi-continental weight class just by existing. He literally hasn't done anything substantial yet. The Defense Force also states that after their encounter with Yusuke, that despite as a team being more than a match for the highest A-class demons, the sheer demonic aura Yusuke was exuding is many orders of magnitude beyond anything they've ever encountered. This isn't even an hyperbole either, considering when an A-class level Yusuke fought suppressed Sensui earlier, he stated that even if Yusuke had 10 times the aura he currently possesses, in other words, 1 order of magnitude, he'd be far from being on the same level as him. Since the literal statement is many orders of magnitude, it's likely more than 2 orders, meaning Yusuke, bare minimum, has become 1,000 times stronger compared to his A-class self. It could be higher since we aren't given a quantifiable number, but we'll just keep it at 3 just to be safe. The craziness in scaling doesn't stop there though, considering Yusuke in his base form is equal to Sensui's attack mode, and them just from clashing with their auras is causing giant cyclones to spawn mid-battle. Considering Yusuke just from existing was already a multi-continental threat, and he forces Sensui into using his attack mode and is going all out, I'd scale this base version of Yusuke minimum in the small planet to planet range of strength. And then he transforms. Sorry for the long-winded breakdown, but I think it was necessary to really emphasize just how insane Yusuke's transformation is under Raizen's influence, because he went from being on equal footing with Sensui to completely ragdolling him with no difficulty. It's pretty bad just how drastic of an increase in power Yusuke gained in this battle. It's admittedly hard to truly gauge Yusuke at this point, to be completely fair, but given his feats while in base and how he completely dwarfs them in this state, I'd say he's definitely planet level now, and possibly even large planet level considering he was never pushed to his limits by Sensui. So where exactly does that leave us when looking at things from Naruto's side? Well, to be blunt, I think it's completely fair to say War Arc Naruto has planet level to large planet level AP as well, with the statement about Kurama being capable of turning the world to ash, but I wouldn't go so far as above that. This is mainly due to Naruto scaling below Kaguya at this point in time in the story, with her expanding truth seeking more feet would get her to large planet level to more likely star level off rip, since she was destroying her own dimension. I think placing him at planet level is fine as well, mainly because just like Yusuke earlier, he was also receiving multiple amps and strength during a single arc, going from KCM 1 to KCM 2 to 6 past Sage mode. In a one-on-one match, I think it's clear that these guys have relative AP to each other and can brawl it out. I think Naruto has an edge in terms of hacks, mainly due to having access to all the other tailed beasts and can utilize all of their powers at once in tandem with his clones, as well as using the 5 tails power in particular to give himself another boost in strength. Yusuke's powers may be more simplistic compared to Naruto's, but I'd argue he'd be able to handle an onslaught of clones using his shotgun to hit multiple targets at once and can still boost his own strength using his life energy if needed. Just because Yusuke turned into a demon doesn't mean he doesn't have access to life energy anymore. We know this basically due to Kurama, who was going to sacrifice his life energy to save his human mother much earlier in the story. Both characters as well have healing factors, although I'd argue Yusuke seems stronger at a glance due to his A-class human form, allowing him to recover from the damage he took from Sensui, while Naruto is able to restore minor damage like Kakashi's eye or make sure a guy's life doesn't die out, but isn't able to restore his arm. I think the deciding factor here though would be speed. As shown time and again, the more aura one has, the higher their stats increase. Sensui in his suppressed base form drastically outscales Genkai, and it's pointed out twice by Koenma herself. Sensui 3v1s Hiei, Kurama, and Kuwabara in his defensive form, not his attack mode, and is literally no diffing the trio, literally saying he hits too hard and moves too fast for them. Yusuke, due to the multiple magnitude leap in power, should be in the massively faster than light category at the bare minimum in terms of combat speed in just his base form. Naruto is definitely faster than light by the time he fights in the war arc, given his feat of blitzing the full powered Raikage just in KCM1 and is dodging Madara's light fang attack, but I don't believe that would put him in the same weight class as Raizen Yusuke due to the drastic leap in stats. So for this match, I'd have to side with Yusuke as the victor. So now let's go ahead and move on to our final match. And now we have our final fight of Upper S-Class Yusuke during the Three Kings arc versus Hokage Naruto. And I hate to disappoint, but this match is incredibly hard to properly scale. This is mainly due to how Togashi wrote the Three Kings arc and didn't show us how the fight between Yusuke and Yomi really went down in the manga. I'll do my best to scale things as accurately as I can, but I'll be the first to say to take my words with a grain of salt. If you disagree with my interpretation, that's fine, just so long as we agree that Yusuke definitely scales above his Raizen form during Chapter Black. Upon entering the demon realm to train with Raizen and his followers, Yusuke goes from a low S-class demon, getting completely dogged by Raizen at the start of the arc, to being on the same level as someone who is considered stronger than him in terms of overall stats by the time the demon tournament starts. And yes, I think it's entirely fair to say that Yusuke is relative to Yomi. Even though he lost the fight against him, he literally fought against him for 60 hours non-stop, and by the time Yomi fought his next opponent in the 4th round of the demon tournament, he didn't put up much of a fight due to the injuries he received from Yusuke prior. Considering that starving Raizen thought Yusuke taking so long to beat Sensui was pathetic and says he was only trying to show Yusuke how to use his powers properly, this is quite telling when showing the gap between low to upper S-class. Another way of looking at it is that Hokushin, Raizen's second in command, is likely in the mid-tier range of S-class stats, but when you compare Hokushin to Yomi stat-wise, Yomi is a little more than 43 times stronger, highlighting the insane gap. What makes things worse is that these metrics become somewhat outdated due to basically everyone training before the demon tournament, including Yomi himself. Looking at Hokage Naruto, I think it's clear that overall he scales above Kaguya, Toneri, and Base Momoshiki in terms of stats, just from what was displayed in the battle against Fused Momoshiki. Keep in mind that the other Kage were confident that they could defeat Base Momoshiki if they jumped him, so it shouldn't be unreasonable to place Naruto that high. Unfortunately, the dynamic duo of Kurama and Naruto is no more in the current canon after the battle against Ishiki, but as many have already discussed, Naruto is still the strongest Kage in the Boruto era even without Kurama amping him. He on his own still has a massive amount of chakra and access to Sage Mode, which still drastically boosts his stats compared to his base form, and he can maintain it for a lot longer compared to when he was younger. Naruto was capable of blatantly reacting to Fused Momoshiki while in base and didn't get completely outpaced. Momoshiki, while controlling Boruto's body, acknowledged Sage Naruto as still being a threat to him and was willing to team up with Code if it meant getting rid of Naruto. Taking into account that Naruto altogether is much stronger than himself during the war, as well as the last, I feel like it's reasonable to say that he as a full-grown adult is at the minimum of large planet to possibly in the star level range in strength, stacked with faster to massively faster light speeds depending on your interpretation, and obviously higher when stacking on Sage Mode. In a one-on-one battle, it's truly hard to say just how strong Yusuke is definitively. We know he drastically scales higher than his Raizen form, but there's no clear frame of reference, or at the very least, I myself was not able to find one I think is completely credible at the time of recording. We know essentially what each character can do, and it isn't far-fetched to say that they both could react to each other. The winner of this match, it likely falls on how strong you believe Yusuke to be at this point. No matter what though, he is definitely at the very least large planet level minimum. And that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching, and especially if you made it towards the end. I genuinely just wanted a reason to yap about Yusuke because he's always been a personal favorite of mine. If you like this video, then consider subscribing to the channel and checking out my other content. I might make a second video breaking down Sasuke and Hiei in a similar manner if this video is received well. But that's it from me for today, so I hope you all have a great day and please stay safe. Peace.